Hi, this is Sandy Foss with Toward Optimized Practice, and I'm going to present a case study that, it's beeping again. Even though I've got it recorded. Test, test. I'm recording right now. Test. Hi, this is Sandy Foss, and I'm going to share with you a case study of a clinic that worked on a PDSA cycle just to use the model for improvement for looking at colorectal cancer screening. Hi, this is Sandy Foss with Toward Optimized Practice, and I'm going to share with you a case study from a clinic that used the model for improvement to work their way through some PDSA cycles to address colorectal cancer screening. So the first thing their improvement looked at was to answer the question, what is our aim? What is it we're trying to accomplish? And what they came up with was that they wanted to increase the completion of colorectal cancer screening from 56% to 85% by June of 2011. The second question they asked from the model for improvement was, how will we know if a change is an improvement? Their outcome measure was that they were going to measure again the percentage of patients who had completed fecal occult blood testing, and the process was going to be the number of patients that were offered colorectal cancer screening. The third question was, what changes could we make that will result in an improvement? So that they knew that they needed to look at their communication and how they were going to address this and make sure that it was communicated across the clinic. They also wanted to generate lists of patients each week that were eligible to have colorectal cancer screening and had an appointment booked for that week. And the other thing they wanted to look at was to standardize the documentation of the offers. So the first cycle that they went through, their plan was that the registered nurse was going to review the day sheet for all eligible patients that were eligible for colorectal cancer screening, and for one physician in the clinic, they were going to start it on a Wednesday, and they were going to offer those patients the fecal occult blood test. So they implemented that plan, and their study showed that 3 out of 5 patients were offered appropriate screening. 2 patients were seen by the physician before the RN saw them, and the assumption by the physician was that the nurse had already offered the screening to the patient, so it was missed. The decision was made at that point to adapt the change. The physician was going to reinforce the importance of the screening, and that way they would ensure that the patient had everything they needed. So they moved on to the second cycle. The plan then was for the RN to continue to review the sheets, and she was going to do that on Friday, look for patients eligible for colorectal cancer screening. The physician was also going to reinforce the importance of the need for this screening to patients, and that way if the patient said, oh, they hadn't heard about it, they would be aware that they needed to get the nurse back in to do some planning with the patient. So they implemented that, and their study found that 3 out of 4 patients were offered screening either by the physician or the nurse. 1 patient was missed. The physician felt that it took too much of their time to go through the instructions, so if they saw the patient before the nurse did, it was just really not the best use of their time to be explaining colorectal cancer screening. So again, they adapted the change, and they made up kits and reminders and moved on to PDSA cycle 3. So the registered nurse did up kits with simple instructions that could be handed to patients, and also she did up sticky note reminders that were added to the physician's computers to remind them to offer the screening. They implemented that plan, and they studied it, and 4 out of 4 of the patients were offered screening, but the physician was unsure if there was a requisition generated if the patient was offered screening and declined. So they were just a little unsure of what was happening with the declined patients. So the next decision was made to adapt the change to standardize the documentation of the offers, and they moved on to PDSA cycle 4. So they created a visit template that included a checkbox for all patients who had declined screening. And so they implemented that plan. They found that 5 out of 5 patients were offered screening, and a decision was made to adopt the change and spread it to the rest of the physicians in the clinic. So they tried that as PDSA cycle 5. So what they did was they tried to use the process that was developed with the one physician to spread the offers of colorectal cancer screening to all the other physicians in the clinic. They implemented that plan. And their first study showed that 17 out of 21 patients were offered screening. They had a brief huddle, and it showed that not all of the RNs were comfortable with what to tell patients about colorectal cancer screening. So they made another decision. They acted and decided to adapt the change to include scripting of the colorectal cancer screening messaging. PDSA cycle 6. So they worked together to develop a script with those nurses that were comfortable with the information, developed a script for all the staff to use with the offers of screening. They implemented that. The next study showed that 19 out of 21 patients were offered screening and 2 were missed. What they found was the sticky note that they had put on the computers in one of the exam rooms had fallen off, and so it was easy. There was no visual cue that they were used to, so they didn't, those patients were missed. So then a new decision was made that they were going to adopt the change again, and they held a brainstorming session to decide how they were going to address the reminder and remembering to offer the screening. So PDSA cycle 7, the plan was to have the brainstorming session, and what they came up with was that they were going to do up fobs that the staff were wearing around their neck. They were on red key fobs with just little plastic pieces at the end with the script written on one side of the plastic and the reminder of the offer on the other. They implemented that plan, and they found that 20 out of 20 patients were offered screening, and of the 20 offers, results were received for 16 patients, which was 80%. At that time, they made the assumption that patients had left with the requisition and the information to do the screening, but they were still outstanding, that the test hadn't actually been done. And so the decision was then made to adopt the change for the entire clinic. In summary, I just wanted to point out that this was a great opportunity for you to revisit the model for improvement and the way changes can be made within clinic settings, and to reinforce the importance of measurement and using team to achieve any kind of an aim. The previous examples were the opportunity to look at how the model for improvement has been used to implement the changes.